So here's what treated material will do to a boat, an aluminum boat that is. As you can see, it is pretty much Swiss cheesed this entire transom. Alright, I figured I'd turn the light off and show you a little bit of what it looks like. That's just shining a light from the back through the transom. Kind of looks like a starry night, doesn't it? All of that was done by treated lumber. How's it going, everybody? This is Jeff Main with Team Real in the Blues. Well, we've got the boat stripped down, we've got everything ready to go, and the transom. Normally I would just be able to pull the wood out of it, the old rotted wood, and put a new wood insert, no problem. Well, this one, it's got some issues. I know it's a little hard to see from there, but I've got maybe 100, probably at least 100 holes eat in this. So what do? Do we just trash the boat? Because that's the reason I got it. The guy was just going to trash it. Or do we fix it? There's a couple options we got here. We can take and cut this entire transom completely out, the skin, cut it completely out, and replace it back, weld in a new piece. Only problem with that, this is a riveted boat. If I was to put a panel in here and put it right next to this lip, which is where I'd want it to be, if I went all the way up that close and then I welded down this line here, I'd probably be okay. The only problem is it's going to really heat up this joint right here where all these rivets are, and more than likely I'm going to wind up with a crack, or I'm going to wind up with the seal being bad all the way down through here. It'll cause the seal to go completely out of it. And besides that, not everybody has a welder, a spool gun, that can put something like this back. So we're going to do the second option here. I'm going to chemically bond a new skin to this. Alright, like I said, we're going to take and put a brand new skin over the top of this. And we're going to put a brand new skin on the inside of it. So essentially what I'm going to do, I mean, this piece of aluminum, even though it's got all these holes in it, it's still structurally sound. This is not going to flex this way. It's not going to flex this way. So essentially the only thing that's wrong with this, it's not watertight anymore. As long as I get rid of all of the areas that are starting to corrode, get those cleaned up real good. What we're going to do, you can see from the pictures, I've already sandblasted it. I'm going to use an acid etch and clean everything off of the inside. I've already acid etched the outside here. You can hear it's got a nice rough surface, and that's what we're looking for. So what I'll do, I'll put a new skin on the inside, a new skin on the outside, and then I will put new solid rivets all the way around the perimeter, about 4 inches apart around the entire perimeter, to bond those three pieces together while I'm waiting on the epoxy to cure. Once that epoxy cures, there's no separating this, and I'll never have to worry about it leaking again. Now, talking about epoxies, there's one other way that people do this, and I do not recommend this at all. Don't make new panels and then use 5200 or any other flexible sealant like a caulking or a silicone to make the patch and put it on. It's the worst possible thing you can do. 5200 is great for sealing things, but not a new patch panel. I've seen people make panels for the floor where they've had a leak. They'll put a panel on it, maybe put a couple rivets in it, put 5200 on it. The problem with that is, once that 5200 ever breaks down, if water gets in between those two layers, it can never get out. So if I was to make this panel out of 5200, let's say, seal it up all the way around, put the new panel on it, it would be just as strong for a short period of time, probably. But the only problem is, if water ever gets in between these, we're done. It's going to just start the process over again, and it'd eat it completely up. Using the epoxy like what I'm talking about, once we put these three pieces together, this is never going anywhere. It will essentially make all three of these pieces one piece. You'll never be able to separate them. This will be probably the strongest transom you'll ever find in a tracker boat. All right, so here we go. The only thing we can do is get started. So the first thing we have to do is make a new pattern for this skin right here. What I can do is set a piece of wood up here, mark it out, get it as close as I possibly can. I'm going to replace the inner skin first. And the reason why we're going to do that, we'll put the inner skin on, then I will drill through all of the mounting locations for all of the brackets. I can drill from the outside through it. So what I'll do is I'll get the skin made. I won't put no epoxies on yet. We'll drop it down in here, make sure the fit's perfect. I want it as tight around the perimeter as I can get it. We'll get it all perfect. We'll put a couple pop rivets in it, in the holes that are already there. We'll go and put some pop rivets in it. We'll figure out exactly how it fits. If everything fits real good, then I will go ahead and drill all the factory holes that are required to remount everything. I'll go ahead and drill all those in it. Once they're all drilled in it, we'll go ahead and mark the location for the solid rivets that we're going to put around it. We can get all those marked, get all those drilled. That way the interior part is 100% ready to go. We're still not going to resin it. And then next, we'll take this pattern, pull it out, use it to make a pattern for the outside. Once we get the pattern for the outside made, we'll put this pattern back in there and we'll drill everything from the inside through the outside. Again, once we get this one in, we'll put just one temporary rivet to hold everything, and then we'll drill all the holes. Once we know all the holes are lined up, everything's perfect, then we'll go to the steps of putting the epoxy on. But first, we need to make our pattern. As you can see, we got the pattern on. It's almost perfect. I'm hanging over maybe a 1/16 of an inch all the way around it now. Even the hole right here is in the perfect spot. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and transfer this over to a piece of aluminum. We'll get it all cut out, and the reason why I'm letting it hang over a little bit, that aluminum will be easy to sand and grind. So what we'll do is we'll get it up here, get it exactly where it needs to go, put some clamps on it, temper it in place, and then we'll grind it to fit this boat absolutely perfect. That way when we're done, nobody will ever know this panel's been replaced. Well, as you can see, it cuts pretty easy with a skill saw. But if you do cut it with a skill saw, you better have some way of protecting your face, your neck, your sleeves, everything, because it does throw a lot of little metal shards. But if you take your time, use a carbide tooth blade with as many teeth as you can get, or just buy a metal cutting blade for your skill saw. Aluminum cuts like cutting through butter. But you can see, I had an old welding helmet that it went bad on me, so I just used a clear screen and use it for cutting. Works real good, protects my face, everything. All right, we'll go ahead and finish trimming this out right here and with the jigsaw, and we'll have a piece we can put back on. Looks good. Okay, now we got the skin cut. You can see, it's gonna be nice. Just gotta do a little prep work on it. It should fit right in the spot we need it to go in. We'll take a vibrate sander, sand all these edges, get them nice and smooth, get rid of those rough edges where I cut it with a skill saw. But we're ready. Shouldn't be that big of a problem. Put it back together. There we go. All fitted and ready to roll. Okay, we got the exterior one finished. Now, this pattern worked good for it because the pattern fit the outside of it. The inside's gonna be just a little bit smaller. So now that I've got the outside one 100% fitted and finished, we'll take and go ahead and use the same pattern. I've already tested it. All I should have to do is trim 1/4 of an inch off of both sides, and this should slide right down on the inside. If it does, then we'll use it to cut our interior panel, and then we're ready. We're rolling. Altogether, I've got about an hour and 10 minutes on all this. So it ain't hard, and I'm using just basic tools. there's the inner one. Done. Now we'll fit it and see if it's perfect. Alright, so here's what we got going on today. I've went around the perimeter. I've marked 1 inch in all the way around the perimeter of the transom. I'm going to put rivets about every 2 inches all the way around this perimeter. I'm going to be using solid rivets, of course. So we'll put those rivets in all the way around the perimeter, and then once we get that done, we'll go ahead and temporary this interior skin, go ahead and do all the prepping, and get this thing ready for the epoxy. Okay, we've got everything marked. I've got my rivets 2 inch on center all the way around the perimeter. That's probably way more than I need, but what the heck, rivets are cheap. I'm going back with solid rivets, like I say, so we'll show you how to do that later. You'll notice I got these sheet metal screws. All it is just a self-cutting sheet metal screw with the big head on it. What I done was went through all of the factory mounting locations that are going through in there. I went ahead, I didn't put any drilling in the old skin. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put all the epoxy on the back side, get both of them prepped, put the 2 pieces together. Notice I got all these screws in it. Put the 2 pieces together, then I'll use these small shafted sheet metal screws. Like I say, these are maybe an 1/8 inch at most. I'll go around and put them in. Everywhere there's going to be a bucking rivet going in, I'll go ahead and put one of those sheet metal screws through it after I put the epoxy on. And what that'll do is it'll pull them together as tight as they can go together. It'll squeeze that epoxy in there. I'll let it set overnight, take the sheet metal screws out of it. Then what I'll do is I'll go in, I'll drill my 3/16 holes for my bucking rivets. After I drill those, then when I put my new skin on the outside, I'll just temporary it in place. Once I temporary it in place, we'll do the same process. We'll cover this entire thing with epoxy, cover the back of the new piece with epoxy. Then I can use the holes that I drilled through this, use the same sheet metal screws, put them in from the back, and then I squeeze the 2 together again. What that does, I mean, these screws put so much clamping pressure, it's not even funny. So by doing that, I'm always marking where the next holes go. Once everything's done, 100% finished, when I pull the screws back out from here, then I'll go through every one of the holes with a 3/16 inch bit, and I'll put my bucking rivets in it, and we're done. Something else I want to mention, whenever you're sanding this aluminum, wear a mask, wear some sort of ventilator. Reason why this dust that comes off this, sure it doesn't float in the air as bad as most dust, but all the old oxidation and all them old chemicals that have dried on this, they will get up in there. You can get one nasty, nasty lung infection from this stuff. Alright, here we go. Now that's what it should look like when it's prepped. This is sanded with 60 grit sandpaper. Opened it up, tons of scratches. Done the same thing on the back side of this, 60 grit sandpaper. Now, this, with that epoxy, it's going to be bonded, be there forever. Alright, what we're going to do now, we're following the directions on the epoxy. We're cleaning this real good with lacquer thinner. Getting all the impurities off of it. Like I say, it's ready to go. So this is what we're going to use. It's a G-Flex epoxy. This is the 655. They make a 650 and a 655. This is 655. 655 has already got a chemical in it to thicken it a little bit. They're both the same, just one's a little thicker than the other one. This one I like better when on something like this. It's up on an edge. That way it doesn't all run off of it. But we'll go and get this mixed up. It mixes 1 to 1. Once we get it all mixed up, then we'll apply it to the back of this and apply it to the back of that, and then we'll put them together. Alright, here we go. We've got equal amounts on both sides. Now it's time to start mixing this stuff up. You want it to mix up really, really good. Now, something that's interesting about this stuff, if you heat it, it gets super thin, which that's kind of what I do a lot of times. I'll put a heat gun or something on it to make it thinner if I'm trying to get it to soak into some smaller pores. But I have me a little measuring spoon, a little measuring dipper. Get it all dipped out, equal amounts. This is way more than I need, but I'd rather have more than what I need than run out halfway through putting it together. All right, we'll get her all mixed up, put her on. Okay, we've got all the screws put back in all them holes we had earlier. Got all this leftover epoxy. I'll probably use it and just go around the seams on the inside. I'm going to cut all these loose stuff off here, make it easier to clean up later. As you can see, it squirted out between all those holes. Might even use it to pre-fill some of these bigger holes. Well, it's been 24 hours since we've done this, and this stuff is cured. It's cured about as hard as you can possibly believe. And you can tell the difference in it. It is rigid. So let's go ahead and take all the screws out, and then we'll go ahead and prep the next skin to put on, and hopefully we'll get another warm day and we can put the next skin on. Okay, so we finished the inner liner. I just got done sanding all the epoxy that squirted out through all the holes and stuff. And now I'm getting ready to put my exterior panel on. I'm going to go ahead and sand this down, get it nice and rough for that epoxy to bond to. This is the side that's facing out, but I'm going to go ahead and get it cleaned up too while I got it screwed here. I'll take this off, sand the inside, get it nice and rough. I've already sanded and cleaned the back side of the old transom. So essentially all that's left to do is to mark all the mounting locations. So before I take and put this on, since the old skin is still there, I'll go and drill all my big holes, like the holes for the motor mounts and all that. I'll go and drill them through the interior skin. Then once I get this exterior skin mounted, then I can just drill all the holes from the inside out, and everything will be back exactly the way it was from the factory. Alright, I've just got it temporary on with a few screws here. Like I say, this is going to look real good when it's done. We'll have to do a before and after, a couple pictures of that to show you what all we had to work with. Alright, as you can see, I've went through and I've pre-drilled all my holes from the inside toward the outside. Now this is just the small holes. So what we'll do next is we'll go ahead and pull this off and go ahead and drill out all the mounting locations for all of the supports inside there. And then we'll put the skin back on it and then drill back from the inside out. Going to take and clean the surface. That'll help get rid of any residue or any dust. Get it all nice and clean. It's good and roughed up now. I'm using a lacquer thinner. That'll take off all the oils and any dust that's in these pores on this aluminum. I know it don't look like we've done anything, but all these dark spots now aren't holes. That's resin, or actually it's epoxy, where I put that epoxy in there. So now we've filled all the voids. This inner skin is mounted to this outer skin. It's sealed up perfectly. Now we've already drilled our holes, our mounting holes from the inside. They're all done. We put the new skin up here, go into epoxy it, get it all done. And then after everything's cured out, we'll drill all the holes from the inside out, and it's ready to be finished.